this particular analyst on Seeking Alpha thinks it's the end of an era for Apple. He makes an interesting case here. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it. I think Apple has persisted for a long time and continued to exceed expectations. So I might be on the other side of this, especially if you want to bet on Apple long term. If it's a long enough term, then it's really hard to predict. But he says Apple has a 30% downside potential, even with things going relatively well. We were talking about how in the last quarter, they were one of the most robust. The iPhone SE seemingly successful, other smartphone brands losing market share, them doing okay, particularly in the US and also in China. Well, there's a number of things happening around Apple that have led to this guy's analysis here. Just want to make sure who it is who wrote this, that it is a guy. I just want to get that right, Will. Can you find the author on this article? Yeah, where is the author? Isn't it normally at the top? You're killing me here. Anyways, I'll go into the analysis while Will searches feverishly to find out who.
Oh, geez, this is a huge article.
It's a huge article, but nowhere does it list the author, or at least it's not. I guess Seeking Alpha is maybe written by the same individual every time, in which case you don't need to sign it.
It says my authors here.
Yeah, it's like a blog. Well, shout out Seeking Alpha anyways. I suppose in this case, it's sufficient to shout out the entire website. Anyways, in his analysis, we're going to assume it's him. We could be wrong, in which case you can cancel us. He says there's a triple threat. First off, you have the geopolitical threat, which we've referenced in the past. It seems that at this point, there's only one potential outcome with the U.S.-China thing. It just no. I'm not saying that they go to some extreme.
Don't do it.
Situation. What I'm saying is it only goes in the direction of increasingly difficult trade. Is what I'm trying to say. That there's going to be more restriction around trade. They should get along. You still get along. You just have new rules around trade. Okay, fine. Figure out those rules and whatever. Move on. What you're willing to purchase, not purchase, and what you're willing to pay, and all the rest of it, and what you're willing to buy, and what type of systems can be installed for your 5G and whatever else. That's all they're gonna hash all that out. But because this is gonna introduce a difficulty in how Apple, specifically one of the few American tech companies that's actually doing significant business in China, it's going to impact their ability to sell their product there in some fashion. We don't know to what extent. We talked about the WeChat ban in the past, how that could affect somewhere in the neighborhood of 20% of Apple's business. 95%, apparently, according to a recent study, 95% of Chinese iPhone owners would give up their iPhone if WeChat were to vanish or become unavailable. Very important application in China. So increasingly doing business in China for American companies should become more difficult, not easier. Tesla, on the other hand, as I'm about to get to a story, they seem to be doing okay, but they put a plant right in China. Elon's been over there. We'll see if Trump has anything to say about Tesla that could impact their business in China. I'm sure that they could be on the list. I don't really know. But at least in Apple's case, this short-term stuff with WeChat and TikTok and everything that's taken place, it's going to make it tougher for them to continue their progression in China. That's the first part of the triple threat. The second part is the legislation, everything that's going on with Epic and Congress looking into potentially monopolistic or duopolistic practices for these big tech giants. I don't know what they're going to do from a regulation standpoint, but let's say this Epic stuff goes in the direction of Epic. If they have any level of success in convincing the courts that they're in the right, then potentially Apple's services business could take a hit because there could be some new normal as to how much revenue they can generate through that. Of course, I don't know how all this would shake out. It's all speculative, and it's speculative for this particular analyst as well. But again, not a good sign. Apple can't be sitting there happy about it. Oh, we now have the biggest players in the world disputing our cut, which is representative of $20 billion a year. We obviously don't want that. And then the last piece referenced here is the global recession. This is relating to the recent pandemic and the thinking that there is a kind of softness to the smartphone market and the hardware side, and people gravitating towards budget devices is great. Apple gets to increase its number of units shipped, but the bottom line would prefer you to buy a premium iPhone and not an iPhone SE, which we presume was a hit for them based on the data that's out there and the average purchase price of a smartphone so far. So that that package of things, that triple threat is the reason that this particular analyst is saying it's the end of an era for Apple's growth. But I should be clear, he's not the first person to write an article like this, get clicks with a headline like this. There's plenty of people invested in Apple long term in much the same way people invest in certain flagship brands, that they're just going to hold it and impact the price, whether the bottom line reflects it or not. And Tesla's an example that we have plenty of others that we've looked at here on the show that seem to have their own pace and their own robustness, where the brand itself plays a strong role,
Right.
and people's commitment to the brand, much in the same way people defend a brand on a tech video, and investors defend brands with a similar type of allegiance. And even if you read the comments on this, people say, yeah, I bet Apple at whatever price and was planning to hold it long term, and now I've made all kinds of money because of it. And at the end of the day, hype, affinity towards brands, it all plays a role on the consumer level, and it plays a role on the investors level. So I'm not telling you to sell your Apple stock. I'll tell you that right now.